If you have clicked on this video, I'm going to assume you're familiar with the game Deltarune, Toby Fox's episodic RPG, which has taken the internet by storm for its cast of colourful characters, gripping boss fights, transcendent soundtrack, and writing, which if not spanning the entire human experience, at least covers the important bits. As an ongoing story, Deltarune has tons of plot threads to pull at, from repeated symbolism, to leitmotifs, to details in the game's code. With the amount of material available, I could talk for literal hours about the game's themes, and where the story is going, as some very talented people already have. But in this video, I want to talk about the Freedom Motif, specifically what it represents in the context of the Shadow Crystal bosses. This is sort of a cross between a theory and a thematic analysis video, so you may have to bear with me here. As I'm about to reach so far, I'm going to pierce Now, with that statement absolving me of any criticism whatsoever, let's dive in. Firstly, what actually is the Freedom Motif? As a Deltarune netizen in this glorious post-Chapter 4 era, you are probably at least somewhat familiar with it, but it wouldn't hurt to give a brief rundown. The Freedom Motif refers to this specific theme. As a musician, Toby Fox makes heavy use of leitmotifs to demonstrate themes or make connections between characters. For example, the Lost Girl motif could be considered to represent emotional connection, or the lack thereof. It plays during the scene when Noelle and Susie interact one-on-one for the first time, which is also the scene where Noelle is thinking about Dis. It plays during the scene where Susie forms her first proper connection. It is featured in the track The Distance Between Two, to signify, well, the distance between two. Noelle and Susie growing closer together, while Chris and the Soul grow further apart. The motif is associated with Dis because the connection she formed and impact she had is what's keeping her in everybody's minds, giving people the motivation to find her. Another example, the Dark Door motif could represent an escalation of stakes. The supply closet door is what kicks off the plot of the game. The chase sequences all have varying levels of urgency, and don't even get me started on how much the appearance of the Roaring Night ramps up the plot. How these motifs are included also impacts the message they are communicating. The Lost Girl motif is featured in the Wells theme, Girl Next Door, to symbolise the deep emotional connection she has to Dis, the connection she wants to have to Susie, and the, not very good connection she has with some other people in her life. To get to the point, the Freedom Motif is featured in the battle themes of the three Shadow Crystal bosses, Jebel, Spamton Neo, and the Hammer of Justice, as well as the prelude to Jebel's fight and in Spamton's shop theme. These characters don't have any direct relations to each other, and are encountered in completely different areas of the game, which leads me to believe that the Freedom Motif is trying to communicate a specific idea. There have been several theories as to what the Freedom Motif represents, and most of which are valid, and given that all these theories, including mine, discuss an artistic choice rather than an aspect of the game's narrative, it is unlikely there will ever be explicit confirmation on what the Freedom Motif means. To address the elephant in the room, I think the Freedom Motif represents a perceived lack of agency, the belief that your choices don't have any impact. To further explain my reasoning, I will talk about the first character to have the Freedom Motif. Jebel, Deltarune's only character who's neurodivergent and in a broken relationship with a non-binary furry. As a last side note before the video essay proper, some very important text will be flashing on screen.
Jebel cutscene, Jebel cutscene, Jebel cutscene.
Jebel is first encountered near the end of Chapter 1. In the elevator leading out of the King's prison, the player has the option to go down to an unmarked floor. Here, you'll encounter an unknown prisoner who simply wants to play a game with you. Following a kingdom-spanning fetch quest involving a puzzle solvable near the start of the game, a criminally hidden secret room, and a suspiciously knowledgeable shopkeeper, You can get the key necessary to free the prisoner, and see the nature of his game. This gives us a good segue into Jibel's primary character trait. He is, to put it politely, completely bug-fuck nuts. He doesn't seem to bear any ill will towards the Fun Gang, even willingly becoming a weapon for them after his defeat. He simply wants to kill them. Regardless of the potential consequences of these actions, Jibel wants to anyway, believing either that the consequences are irrelevant, or even non-existent. I think that this stems from Jibel's belief that people have no agency over their decisions, and that everything is set in stone. A large number of things about Jibel are either out of your control, or follow a set path. Once you speak to Jibel, the quest starts, regardless of your choice. Once you repair the prison key, you have to open Jibel's cage. His battle dialogue, while nonsensical, sometimes indicates that aspects of the fight are out of his control. Even the primary mechanic of his battle, pirouette, while described as random chaos, actually follows a specific pattern. Under Jibel's thin veneer of chaos, everything about him is set in stone. This is a result of him seeing the world as a game, and everyone as its participants. A common theory is that this means Jibel knows he's in a video game. However, I believe that the statement has two meanings. It refers to how he believes his actions have no consequences, more on that later, and that agency is limited by the prophecy. My reasoning for the second point is that specific emphasis is put on the fact that every person is participating in the game, and that the game extends beyond the numbers game Jibel plays with the Fun Gang. The prophecy ordains that certain roles will be fulfilled, just as the game requires different people to play different parts. For example, Chris is forced by the manipulation of others into being the vessel for the soul, fulfilling the role of the cage. Lancer calls Rousey Toothpaste Boy, fulfilling the role of the pointy-headed one. Rousey lives his life alone in Castletown, preparing to guide Chris and Susie, becoming the prince alone in Deepest Dark. Moreover, certain events have to happen according to the prophecy. The roaring will happen if the fountains are freed. Tenno will get cleaved red by blades. Jibel's post-fight dialogue indicates they think the roaring will happen. Jibel believes that both major future events and people's actions are preordained by the prophecy. Jibel uses this knowledge as an excuse to do whatever he wants. So what if he kills someone? If they were required for the prophecy, then they wouldn't have died due to Jibel's actions. So what if he refused to obey society's laws? It's not going to change how events transpire. So what if you gamble away all your life savings? The roaring is going to happen anyway, and by then, your finances and your crushing debt to Newbert will be the least of your concerns. Jibel so firmly believes that his choices don't have any impact on the course of events, that gives him a sort of joy, the freedom to do whatever he wants. This is what Jibel means when he says he can do anything. His idea of freedom has nothing to do with being able to change the course of events, or being able to move freely. The fact he's in a cage doesn't do anything to inhibit his freedom. This is because to him, freedom is the knowledge that your choices don't have any impact on the course of events, therefore they don't have any consequences. This is the second meaning of him seeing the world as a game. Just as choices made in a game don't matter because it has to follow a specific sequence of events, Jibel believes that his choices don't matter because certain events have to happen. The reason Jibel thinks he's the only one who's free is that nobody else wholeheartedly subscribes to his worldview. Even Shawn, his closest companion, only partially believes that the choices don't have any impact, and even then they changed their opinion over the course of the Shadow Crystal quest. Jibel is absolutely free in the sense he doesn't have to worry about the consequences of his actions. So, how does this all link back to the Freedom Motif? Jibel's theme, the world revolving, only has two motifs. Don't Forget, a motif it shares with many other songs in the game, and the Freedom Motif. The Freedom Motif is featured very heavily in the world revolving, and what I consider to be the climax of the song. Sounds almost like an improvised extension of the motif. Meanwhile, the Don't Forget motif is incomplete and sort of tacked onto the end of the song, possibly as a way to make it loop more smoothly. In terms of motif, the world revolving is pretty one note. The Shadow Crystal boss, whose entire philosophy
revolves
around his lack of impact on the world around him, also features the Freedom Motif the most prevalently in his theme. The other Shadow Crystal holders, at least ones with personality beyond body language, have the Freedom Motif in their themes, and an understanding that the choices don't have any impact, but they still have other motivations. Spamton wants to take up the cyber world, while Gerson wants to train Susie and make amends to his son. The Freedom Motif is considerably less prevalent in their themes. Just as Jebel has shaped his entire life around the acceptance his choices don't have any impact, to a far greater degree than the other Shadow Crystal bosses, his theme is dominated by the Freedom Motif to a far greater degree as well.
Oh, I'm Spamton. I'm Spamton G. Spamton. I'm a big shot, yeah.
The next character to feature the Freedom Motif is Spamton G. Spamton, the washed-up salesman with connections beyond the veil and aspirations to make it big. Again. Even if you've never played Deltarune, I'm sure you've heard of Spamton for, any variety of reasons. However, I will still bring up relevant things about his character. Spamton is first encountered alone by Chris in a dumpster in Cyber City. Defeating him causes him to make a proposal, help him become a big shot, and he'll make you a big shot in turn. Travelling to a shop to follow him up on his offer starts a quest involving a fake currency, the teacups that belongs on the no-fly list, and Spamton, bears a reference to Neo from the hit movie The Matrix, 1999. Over the course of the side quest, you start to notice a few things about Spamton. To put a long story short, Spamton is fucking nuts. To put a short story long, Spamton is obsessed with being able to call his own shots. He became successful as a salesman after getting help from a voice over the phone, who taught him how to be a big shot. When this voice disappeared, Spamton's sales empire fell down with it. He then became obsessed with the machine in the Queen's basement. Spamton's goal, and by extension the aim of Chris's quest, is to upload himself into this machine, believing it would give him the power to be a big shot once more. Fulfilling his request allows you to fight Spamton Neo, Spamton's idea of being a big shot. Spamton Neo's theme, Big Shot, is also where our good friend the Freedom Motif pops up again. It can be heard during this section. Now, there are a few things going on here. On the first run-through of the leitmotif, it is being played alongside Power of Neo, Metaton Neo's theme. While there is a definite similarity to Battle Against a True Hero, it's got this distinct heavy synth to it, so it makes it sound like Power of Neo. Given the machine's connections to Metaton, with it implied to be his ideal body, I'm going to make the assumption that this inclusion represents Spamton's transformation into Spamton Neo. On the second run-through, Power of Neo and the Freedom Motif are joined by some distorted mumbling. What the voice is exactly saying is up for debate, but it seems to be talking about the person who called Spamton over the phone. Given how much this person impacted Spamton, I'm going to assume that the lyrics inclusion in this section of Big Shot is used to represent Spamton's relationship with the voice over the phone. So, the Freedom Motif appears in the same section representing Spamton's transformation, and the person who helped him succeed, but then left him out to dry. What does this all mean? Well, to untangle the strings and make them ring, I have to talk about what being a big shot truly means. Like Jebel, Spamton believes his choices don't matter. However, whereas Jebel's belief stems from his knowledge of the prophecy and the oncoming roaring, Spamton's strings are a bit more personal and a lot more spiteful. Spamton had become a very successful salesman, and the influence that gave him allowed his choices to matter in a sense. This is what being a big shot meant. When the voice on the phone cut him off, he lost his sales, and by extension the influence that this money gave him. At the point you meet him, he's become obsessed with regaining this influence. While Spamton's reasoning may be different from Jebel's, they still both believe that their choices do not have any impact. While Jebel accepts this and does whatever he wants, Spamton desperately tries to regain the level of influence he once had. However, this drive reinforces his belief that his choices don't matter, as by trying to regain his influence through becoming stronger, he is accepting that in his current position, he doesn't have the influence to make his actions meaningful. He tries to become Neo to seize his influence back through force. However, this drive causes him to alienate those around him. He no longer has any impact on the lives of other people. Even if he did overpower every Darkner in Cyberworld, he's still subject to the same rules as everyone else, still just as vulnerable in the Light World. Even if he did somehow find his way into the Light World, he'll still be a slave to entropy, to gravity, to the whims of Newbit. Even when he becomes Neo, he still has strings attached to him. No amount of power could give Spamton full control of his choices. Rather than realising the impact his choices have in his current situation, he pursues an impossible state of total agency. Just as the Freedom Motif is linked with the power of Neo, and the phone lurks in Big Shot, Spamton's desire to become Neo, and his obsession with the voice on the phone, are both a result of, and a fundamental driver, of his perceived lack of agency. So, where does this leave us? The Freedom Motif effectively represents the belief in one's own lack of agency. Jevil and Spamton have different relationships with this belief, which is reflected in the inclusion of the Freedom Motif in their respective themes. In the world revolving, the Freedom Motif takes the forefront because Jevil completely believes in his lack of control over his own fate. While in Big Shot, the Freedom Motif plays alongside the Metaton Neo motif and the lyrics about the caller, because Spamton's desire to become Neo is fundamentally linked to his belief that his choices only mattered when he had to help with the voice over the phone. A lack of agency, of control over your own life, is a recurring element in the story arcs in many of Deltarune's characters, and could even be considered one of the game's major themes. Chris is being manipulated by both the Soul and the conspirators. Their ability to leave their own impact on the world is greatly inhibited. The Soul is seemingly destined to lose against the Roaring Knight, and not gain Chapter 3 Shadow Crystals, preventing you from completing the Shadow Crystal quest, and forcing you to experience a specific narrative. Rousey struggles with his knowledge of the prophecy, and his obligation to fulfill the role as a prince. In a more depressingly mundane sense, Susie is confined by society to the role of an outcast, a troublemaker, denied many basic things. Pretty depressing, huh? Well, thanks for watching my first video. I'll probably make more in the future. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell. Oh, fuck! That's right, folks. We've got Gerson motherfucking Boone left. Torches with a big hammer and an even bigger heart. Author, father, Richard Dark Sanctuary's most fuckable resident. 10 hours in a row.
What? He was going to reveal my secrets.
Anyway, Gerson is a stark contrast to the previous characters I've talked about. He's optimistic, kind-hearted, and willing to put his own safety on the line for others. Whereas Spamton manipulates Christopher for his own goals, Gerson trains Susie simply to help her reach her true potential. However, he does have one thing in common with Jevil and Spamton: knowledge that he doesn't have full control over his own fate. Gerson was a priest, and had an intimate understanding of the prophecy, a core part of Hometown's religion. The same prophecy that states that certain events will always happen, regardless of people's choices. Despite this, Gerson still chooses to act like his choices matter, and he's right. Just because certain events are destined to happen, doesn't mean you can't change the lives of others around you. It doesn't mean that the ultimate outcome has to remain the same. It doesn't mean you have to be confined to a specific role in life. Even regarding the events preordained by the prophecy, the prophecy is just a statement, and statements can be interpreted in many different ways. For example, the ring of heaven's call could be a ringing sound, or a literal ring like the Thorn Ring, or something else entirely. There are several characters who could have the title of Prince, meaning Rousey doesn't necessarily have to be the Prince alone in Deepest Dark. And much more importantly, there are many pointy-headed characters capable of speaking, thus being able to say toothpaste and in boy. meaning that Lancer may not be into prophecy at all. We don't know how his events will turn out, and that little bit of uncertainty matters. It allows you to fit between the gaps and change things. This is all a very roundabout way of saying that Gerson understands that he isn't in full control of his life, but still acts as if his choices matter. He doesn't treat them as inconsequential like Jevil, or develop a single-minded obsession of becoming strong enough to make his choices matter, like Spamton. And how is this reflected in the Freedom Motif? Well... It may not be obvious at first, but when you compare the start of the Hammer of Justice section with the middle of the Freedom Motif and the world revolving, the similarities become apparent. The connection becomes even more obvious in the second run-through of Hammer of Justice's version, where the same pan flute from the world revolving joins in. The Freedom Motif has been broken, rearranged, and rebuilt to better fit the rest of Hammer of Justice, but it's still undeniably there. Despite Gerson's optimistic outlook, he still knows he isn't in full control of his life. He doesn't let this knowledge shape his worldview, rather, he lets his worldview shape his perception of this knowledge. Gerson challenges the forces leading him down a specific path, because with enough small decisions, small acts of defiance, you can change the outcome for the better, no matter how small that change may be. While Chris cannot fully shake off the soul's control, they can still hinder it and, to a degree, exert control over how it impacts the world. The player may lose against the Roaring Knight, but either through going places they shouldn't, or sheer bloody-mindedness, they can get Chapter 3 Shadow Crystal, defying the outcome forced on them by the narrative. Rouse is able to break away from his apparent role into prophecy, and develop his own identity, while still trying to prevent the Roaring. While some people's perception of Susie may never change, she is still able to form meaningful connections, and defies a role forced onto her. So, as I was recording the first draft of this video, I thought I might as well add a section where I discuss my thoughts on the thematic relevance of the three Freedom Motif bosses. This doesn't really have much to do with the Freedom Motif, and more to do with this idea of a lack of agency. Fair warning, this is all interpretation, and I'm going to be reaching far more than in the earlier sections of this video. I absolutely think the game is making an argument against inaction. In this day and age, many things are out of our control. The fate of many people is often decided by a select few. However, even though you may not have as much control over your life as you should, what choices you make, no matter how few, still impact the people around you. Your decisions can change people's lives, for better or worse, even if it's just a change to their emotional state. In the world of Deltarune, even though certain events are preordained, your choices as the player still impact the characters. Recruiting every Lightner in Chapter 3 and 4 allows Tenor and Jackenstein to survive. Defeating Birdley with violence fries his arm, meaning he may not be able to go to the festival. Whether or not you gather the Shadow Crystals impacts Shawm's worldview. While these consequences only impact fictional characters, and as a result of simple binary choices, they still demonstrate that the choices made by everyday people, or Lightners in this case, still have an impact. I think that the Freedom Motif bosses are meant to represent the impacts our choices have, even in situations where we don't have full control. Jebel is very helpful in showing this, because details in his backstory show he's full of his choices do have an impact. It was a conscious choice to tell Shawm about the Roaring, and his choice had major impacts on their worldview. Fuck, Jebel might even be responsible for kicking off the plot of the game by telling King how to make a dark fountain. Even if he doesn't believe it, his choices hold weight. Even though Spamton certainly has less choice than he once had, his isolation, which limited the impact he had on other people, was a result of his decision to pursue the machine in the Queen's basement. With what little agency he has left, he chooses to try and kill Chris, a person in a similar situation to him, solely to gain his own freedom. By trying to pursue total control for his sake only, Spamton lost what little positive impact his choices had. Garrison, meanwhile, understands that while there are many things beyond his control, his choices still have impact. By writing the Lord of the Hammer books, he positively impacted the lives of many people, while also negatively impacting his son by making him doubt his own writing abilities. His training of Susie is what motivates her to continue learning healing magic. And finally, his biggest example, the impact he had on people during his life is what allowed him to reincarnate as a Darkner, which in turn allowed the Fun Gang to defeat the Titan, where otherwise they may have given up hope. Deltarune is telling us that even though many things may be out of our control, our choices ultimately still have impact. Don't give up hope and disregard what impact your choices have like Jebel, but also don't become obsessed with gaining a total control at the expense of others around you, like Spamton. Rather, be like Garrison, and actively live your life in ways that positively impacts those around you. Fight against control out of a sense of justice and love for others, rather than simply to achieve power for power's sake. Stumble, falter, but keep moving towards a better outcome. Thank you so much for watching this half-baked idea, which became way bigger than I thought it would. I was originally going to tack on a section at the end linking Jebel, Garrison and Spamton's behaviour to the way people interact with stories, but I made the ending of the video awkwardly paced, so I'm going to save that for a broader video, talking about how Deltarune's themes of connection, escapism, and freedom all link together. If you want to hear me discuss other aspects of Deltarune, please let me know in the comments. However, I do want to make videos about things other than Deltarune. Lastly, if you enjoyed this video, please share it online. Anyway, bye!